The angry voice sliced through the elegant hum of the Seattle restaurant like a blade. Hey, you two. This isn't the place for your disgusting behavior. Take your gay shit somewhere else. The man at the next table, red-faced and pointing, had every head in the room turning. Talon froze, his fingers still laced with Isaac's beneath the white linen tablecloth. His heart slammed against his ribs. For 2 years he had kept this part of himself locked away from the world. From his board, from his parents back in Texas, from everyone who saw him as the straight-shooting CEO of Apex Tech. But as the waiter hesitated and guests whispered, Talon rose slowly, his 6-foot frame casting a long shadow across the candlelit table. His voice came out calm, almost gentle. Actually, sir, before you keep going, you should know exactly who I am. I'm Talon Hayes, CEO of Apex Tech. And yes, I'm gay. This is my partner, Isaac Rivera. The room went deathly silent. Forks hovered mid-air. A woman in pearls dropped her wineglass. It shattered, but no one moved. The attacker's face drained of color as recognition hit him. He had shaken Talon's hand at last month's tech summit. Whispers rippled outward like waves. Phones stayed in pockets. No one dared record yet. Isaac squeezed Talon's hand tighter, his dark eyes wide with a mix of pride and fear. Talon sat back down, the leather chair creaking softly under him. His pulse still raced, but something inside him had cracked open. For the first time in his life, the secret was out in the open air, and the world hadn't ended. Not yet. The manager rushed over, apologizing profusely, comping their meal and offering to move them to a private room. Talon waved him off. We're fine right here. He turned to Isaac, whose thumb traced small circles on his knuckles. You okay? Isaac nodded, but his smile was tight. You just came out to half of Seattle's elite in one sentence. I'm more than okay. I'm in awe. Later that night, back in Talon's sleek downtown loft overlooking Puget Sound, the adrenaline finally crashed. Talon paced the open kitchen, phone buzzing nonstop with texts from colleagues and reporters who had somehow already heard. Isaac leaned against the island, arms crossed, watching him. You didn't have to do that for me, he said softly. Talon stopped, meeting those steady brown eyes. I did it for us. I'm tired of hiding you like you're something to be ashamed of. Isaac pulled him close, their foreheads touching. The city lights glittered beyond the floor-to-ceiling windows, but the real glow was in the quiet space between them. The next morning, the story was everywhere. Tech CEO comes out during restaurant confrontation. Talon's inbox overflowed. Some messages were supportive. Others from investors hinted at brand concerns. His mother's call came at 7 a.m. Texas time. Talon Michael Hayes, what on earth is going on? Your father saw the news. Her voice trembled with the same disappointment he had feared since he was 16 and first realized he liked boys. He hung up after promising to explain in person, but the weight of that conversation already pressed on his chest. Isaac made coffee, sliding a mug across the counter. You don't have to face them alone. Talon took the mug, the warmth grounding him. He thought back to the night they met, 2 years earlier at a charity gala for LGBTQ youth. Ironic now. Isaac had been photographing the event, camera slung around his neck, laughing at something a volunteer said. Talon, there as a sponsor but pretending to be straight as always, had been drawn across the room by that laugh. They talked for hours about everything and nothing. By the end of the night, Isaac had slipped him his number on the back of a business card. No pressure, he'd said with a wink. Just coffee if you want. Their first real date had been a quiet hike in the Cascades. No paparazzi, no board members, just pine needles underfoot and Isaac's easy stories about growing up in California with parents who marched in pride every year. Talon had never felt so seen. Yet even then he had asked Isaac to keep things private. My world isn't ready, he'd said. Isaac had agreed, but the promise had started to fray at the edges. Now, standing in the loft with the world knowing, Talon realized the fray had finally snapped. He set the mug down and pulled Isaac into a tight hug. "Thank you for waiting." Isaac's arms wrapped around him. "I wasn't waiting for the world, Talon. I was waiting for you." The days that followed blurred into a storm of meetings and media requests. Talon's best friend Marcus, his college roommate and now head of marketing at Apex, showed up at the loft with takeout tie and a six-pack. "Dude, you could have warned me," Marcus said, but his grin was genuine. "I've got your back. Always have." The loyalty felt like a lifeline. Yet not everyone was so kind. A board member left a voicemail suggesting Talon, "Take some time to reconsider your public image." The words stung more than the restaurant attack. Isaac stayed over every night that week, cooking simple dinners and listening when Talon needed to vent. One evening they sat on the balcony, the sound dark and glittering below. Isaac rested his head on Talon's shoulder. "You know this changes everything, right? No more secret dinners. No more pretending at events." Talon nodded, fear and freedom warring inside him. He had spent years building a wall to protect the life he thought he needed. Now that wall was rubble and he had to decide what to build next. His father's text arrived on Friday. "Come home this weekend. We need to talk." Talon stared at the screen until the letters blurred. Isaac watched him from the couch. "You want me to come with you?" Talon shook his head. "Not yet. I need to do this part alone." But as he booked the flight to Dallas, he wondered if he had the strength to face the people who had raised him without ever really knowing him. The restaurant had forced the truth into the light. Now the real battle was just beginning. The Dallas heat hit Talon like a wall the moment he stepped off the plane. His childhood home in the suburbs looked exactly as it had the last time he visited. White picket fence, American flag waving gently, his mother's rose bushes in perfect bloom. But everything felt different now. He parked the rental car and sat for a long minute, hands on the wheel, rehearsing words he had practiced on the flight. His father opened the door before Talon even reached the porch. Robert Hayes stood tall in his pressed polo shirt, the same stern expression he had worn at every little league game and high school graduation. "Inside," was all he said. The living room smelled of lemon polish and pot roast, Sunday dinner still a sacred ritual. His mother, Linda, waited on the floral couch, eyes red-rimmed. "We saw the video, Talon. Someone recorded the whole thing." Talon sat across from them, the coffee table between them feeling like a canyon. "I'm sorry you found out like that," he began. His father cut him off. "Sorry? You stood up in a public place and told the world you're gay. Do you have any idea what this does to our family? To the church? To my business?" The words landed like punches Talon had been expecting for years. He thought of Isaac back in Seattle, probably pacing the loft waiting for an update. "Dad, this isn't a choice I made to hurt you. It's who I am. It's who I've always been." His mother reached for his hand but stopped halfway. "We love you, honey. We always pictured you with a wife, kids, the whole life we had." Talon's throat tightened. He had pictured that life too once because it was the only one they had ever shown him. Dinner was silent except for the clink of silverware. Talon pushed green beans around his plate, remembering the nights he had prayed in his childhood bedroom to wake up normal. After the meal, his father asked him to step into the study. The room smelled of old books and pipe tobacco. Robert poured 2 glasses of bourbon but didn't offer one to Talon. "I built my construction company from nothing so you could have opportunities. Now investors are calling me, asking if my son is some kind of activist. What am I supposed to tell them?" Talon met his father's eyes. "Tell them the truth. Your son is gay and he's still the same man who graduated top of his class and built a tech company from a garage." The conversation ended with his father's quiet, "I need time." Talon drove back to the airport hotel feeling hollow. He called Isaac from the balcony overlooking the airport lights. It went about as well as expected. Isaac's voice was soft. "You did the hardest part. The rest is just noise." But the noise followed Talon back to Seattle. At the office Monday morning, the atmosphere was electric. Colleagues offered awkward hugs or avoided eye contact. Marcus pulled him into a conference room. Board meeting at 10. They're nervous about the quarterly investor call. Talon straightened his tie. Let them be nervous. I'm not apologizing for being honest. Inside the glass-walled room, the board members sat like judges. The chairman, a silver-haired venture capitalist named Richard, cleared his throat. Talon, we admire your courage, but the optics some of our largest clients are family-oriented companies. We need to discuss damage control. Talon listened, jaw tight, then spoke. Damage control? I came out because a bigot attacked me and my partner in public. If that hurts our stock, maybe we need better clients. The meeting ended without resolution. Talon walked out feeling lighter and heavier at the same time. That evening Isaac met him at their favorite Thai place, the same one they used to visit in secret. This time they held hands openly across the table. How does it feel? Isaac asked. Talon smiled for the first time in days. Terrifying. Free. Both. Back at the loft, they danced slowly to an old song on the record player. Bodies close, the city humming below. Isaac's fingers traced the line of Talon's jaw. I'm proud of you. Whatever happens next, we face it together. Talon kissed him, soft and sure. For the first time, the future felt possible instead of impossible. But possibility came with cost. The next morning, a tabloid headline screamed, Apex Tech CEO's secret gay life exposed, stock drops 8%. Talon stared at the numbers on his laptop. Marcus burst in. Legal's on it. We'll issue a statement. Talon shook his head. No statement. Let them talk. I'm done hiding. Yet when he looked at Isaac's worried face across the breakfast bar, doubt crept in. Was his truth worth the empire he had built? The weeks stretched into a delicate balance. Talon worked longer hours to prove he was still the same leader. Isaac photographed weddings on weekends, coming home with stories that made Talon laugh. One Friday night they drove to the coast, parked on a bluff, and watched the sunset bleed orange across the water. Isaac leaned against the hood of the car. Remember when you told me you could never come out because of your family? Talon nodded. I was wrong. I was scared. Isaac turned to him. You're not scared anymore? Talon pulled him close. I'm still scared. But I'm more scared of losing you. They made love that night in the loft with the windows open to the salt air, slow and tender, every touch a promise. Afterward, lying tangled in sheets, Isaac whispered, whatever your family decides, whatever the board decides, I choose you every single day. Talon believed him. But belief would soon be tested by a phone call he never expected. His mother's voice on the line was shaky. Your father had a heart attack. He's in the hospital. He's asking for you. Talon booked the first flight out, Isaac driving him to the airport in silence. At the gate Talon turned. I don't know how long I'll be gone. Isaac cupped his face. I'll be right here when you get back. Go be the son he needs right now. The flight felt endless. Talon stared at the clouds and wondered if his truth had somehow caused this. By the time he reached the Dallas hospital, guilt sat heavy in his stomach. His mother met him in the waiting room, hugging him tight. He's stable. But the doctor said stress played a part. Talon nodded, throat dry. When he walked into the room, his father looked small in the bed, monitors beeping softly. Robert opened his eyes. You came. They talked for hours about the business, about the past, about the things neither had ever said. Robert's voice cracked when he finally asked, Does this mean I'll never have grandchildren? Talon swallowed hard. It means you might have them a different way. But I'm still your son. His father reached for his hand. It was the first time in 30 years his father had initiated touch like that. I don't understand it all, Talon. But I don't want to lose you either. The words cracked something deep inside Talon. He stayed in Dallas for a week, helping with doctor's appointments, sitting by the bed. Each night he called Isaac and recounted every small victory. "He asked about you today," Talon said one evening. "Wanted to know what you do for a living." Isaac laughed softly. "Progress." On the last night before Talon's flight home, his father looked at him across the hospital tray. "Bring him to meet us sometime. When I'm stronger." Talon's eyes stung. "I will." The plane ride back to Seattle felt lighter than the trip out. He had faced the worst fear and found a fragile bridge instead of a wall. Isaac waited at baggage claim with flowers, sunflowers, Talon's favorite. They drove home with the windows down, wind whipping through their hair. That night they cooked together, laughing over spilled sauce, the kitchen filled with music and the smell of garlic. Talon watched Isaac dancing at the stove and realized this was the life he had been fighting for. Not perfection, but honesty. Yet the board was still circling. An emergency meeting was called for Monday. Talon walked into the conference room with his head high. Richard slid a folder across the table. "We've had 3 major clients pull out. We need you to step back publicly for a while." Talon read the numbers, then closed the folder. "Or what?" The room went quiet. "Or we vote on new leadership." The threat hung in the air. Talon looked at each face. "I built this company. I'm not stepping back from who I am." He stood. "Vote if you need to. But I won't hide anymore." He walked out, heart pounding, but certain for the first time in years. Isaac met him on the rooftop that evening with a bottle of wine. "Whatever happens, we'll figure it out." Talon clinked their glasses. Together, the city lights stretched below them like stars brought down to earth. For the first time Talon believed the future could be bright. The board vote came faster than anyone expected. Talon received the email at 9:17 a.m., a special session scheduled for Friday. Marcus sat across from him in the corner office. Tie loosened. "They're scared, man. Stock's down another 4%. But the employees are with you. I've heard them talking." Talon stared at the skyline. "I didn't come out to destroy the company I love." Marcus leaned forward. "Then fight for it. Show them you're still the guy who closed the Anderson deal with nothing but a handshake and a vision." That afternoon Talon called an all-hands meeting. 200 employees packed the open floor. He stood on the small stage without notes. "Some of you saw the news. Some of you have questions. Here's the truth. I'm gay. I've been gay my whole life. It doesn't change how I lead this company. It doesn't change the fact that we're building technology that helps people connect. If any of you feel uncomfortable, I respect that. But if you're willing to keep building with me, I promise to keep fighting for every one of you." The applause started slow, then swelled until the glass walls vibrated. A young woman in engineering wiped tears and raised her fist. Talon stepped down, shaken by the support. Isaac waited in the parking garage, leaning against Talon's car. Heard the speech went viral inside the building. Talon kissed him right there under the fluorescent lights. "Feels good to stop lying." They drove to a small Italian place Isaac had found, tucked away in Capitol Hill. Over pasta and red wine Isaac told stories from his latest photo shoot. A same-sex wedding where the couple had cried during their vows. "That could be us someday," Isaac said quietly. Talon's fork paused. "You want that?" Isaac smiled. "Only if you do." The question hung between them like a promise neither had voiced before. The next morning Talon's mother called again. "Your father's home. He's asking about Isaac. Wants to know if you'll bring him for Thanksgiving." Talon nearly dropped the phone. "You're sure?" She laughed softly. "We're trying, honey. It's not easy, but we're trying." He hung up and immediately texted Isaac. "My parents want to meet you. Thanksgiving in Texas." The reply came seconds later. "I'll bring the pie." The weeks leading to the holiday were a whirlwind. Talon worked 12-hour days rebuilding client trust. taking meetings that once would have been beneath him. Investors who had pulled out slowly trickled back after seeing employee morale at an all-time high. Marcus joked, "Turns out authenticity is good for business." But the stress showed in the lines around Talon's eyes. Isaac noticed and planned quiet evenings, movies on the couch, walks along the waterfront where they could hold hands without fear. One night, after a particularly brutal investor call, Talon came home and collapsed on the couch. Isaac knelt in front of him, unlacing his shoes. "Talk to me." Talon closed his eyes. "They want me to issue a statement saying it was a personal matter and won't affect performance. Like my love is a liability." Isaac rested his chin on Talon's knee. "You already issued the only statement that matters when you stood up in that restaurant." Talon pulled him up into a kiss that tasted of gratitude and exhaustion. Thanksgiving arrived with crisp Texas air. Talon and Isaac flew in together, Isaac's hand tight in his during takeoff. At the airport, his mother hugged Isaac first. "We've heard so much about you." His father shook Isaac's hand, grip firm but eyes uncertain. Dinner was awkward at first, polite questions about photography, about Seattle weather. Then Talon's younger sister, home from college, asked Isaac about pride parades. The conversation opened like a window. By pie, his father was laughing at one of Isaac's stories. Later, on the back porch, Robert handed Talon a beer. "He's a good man." Talon swallowed hard. "The best." His father nodded once. "I'm glad you brought him." The flight home felt like victory. Isaac fell asleep on Talon's shoulder, and Talon watched the clouds, heart full. But victory was short-lived. Back in Seattle, an anonymous email arrived at the company server. Photos of Talon and Isaac from their coastal trip, taken with a long lens. The subject line read, "Family values clients won't appreciate this." Legal traced it to a disgruntled former board member. The photos spread internally before security could contain them. Marcus stormed into Talon's office. "We can sue. This is harassment." Talon stared at the images. Isaac laughing in the sunset, their hands linked. "No. Let them see. I'm done being ashamed of the best part of my life." He forwarded the email to the entire company with a note. "These are private moments. If anyone has an issue with them, my door is open." The response was overwhelmingly supportive. Cards and emails poured in from employees sharing their own stories. Isaac saw the photos online and drove straight to the office. He found Talon on the rooftop, wind whipping his hair. "You okay?" Talon pulled him close. "Better than okay. I'm free." They stood there until the sun dipped behind the Space Needle, the city glowing around them. That weekend they attended their first public event together, a fundraiser for LGBTQ youth. Talon wore a simple black suit. Isaac looked stunning in deep burgundy. Cameras flashed as they walked the red carpet hand in hand. A reporter asked, "Any regrets about coming out?" Talon smiled at Isaac. "Only that I waited so long." The night ended with them slow dancing in the loft to the same song that had played on their first date. Isaac rested his head on Talon's chest. "We made it through the storm." Talon kissed his hair. "The storm made us stronger, yet deeper currents were moving." Talon's father called midweek. "The church elders want me to step down from the board because of you." I told them no. Talon's throat tightened. "Dad, you don't have to." His father cut him off. "I do. You're my son." The words landed like healing balm. Christmas approached. Talon and Isaac decorated the loft with a small tree and strings of lights. One evening Isaac pulled a small velvet box from his pocket. "Not yet," he said quickly as Talon's eyes widened. "Just a promise. Whenever you're ready." Inside was a simple silver band engraved with coordinates, the exact spot on the bluff where they had watched their first sunset. Talon slipped it on his right hand. "I'm ready when you are." The new year brought fresh challenges. Apex Tech faced a hostile takeover attempt from a conservative investment group citing values misalignment. Talon spent weeks in strategy sessions, Isaac waiting up with tea and quiet encouragement. One night after a 2 a.m. call, Talon crawled into bed and whispered, "I might lose everything I built." Isaac wrapped around him. "You won't lose me." The board met in emergency session. Talon presented a counterplan that included diversity initiatives and employee stock options. The vote was close, 7-6 in his favor. When the gavel fell, Marcus clapped him on the back. "You did it." Talon exhaled for what felt like the first time in months. That evening he took Isaac to the same restaurant where the nightmare had begun. The manager recognized them and offered the best table. They ordered the same wine. Halfway through the meal, Talon reached across the table. "Remember the last time we were here?" Isaac laughed. "Hard to forget." Talon pulled the velvet box from his pocket, the real one this time. "I don't want to wait anymore." He slid to one knee right there in the middle of the restaurant. "Isaac Rivera, will you marry me?" The room erupted in applause as Isaac pulled him up into a kiss. "Yes, 1,000 times yes." The engagement made headlines again, but this time the tone was different, celebratory. Apex Tech stock climbed. Clients who had left returned with apologies. Talon walked the halls with a lightness he hadn't felt since college. Isaac moved the last of his things into the loft the following weekend. They spent Sunday painting the spare room a soft gray, music loud, paint smudged on both their cheeks. Yet not every shadow had lifted. Talon's sister called one evening in tears. "Mom's been getting hateful messages at church. People saying Dad should disown you." Talon's stomach dropped. He booked flights for both of them the next weekend. When they arrived, his mother hugged Isaac tightly. "Ignore the noise. You're family now." His father took them fishing on the lake, the four of them in the old aluminum boat. No one mentioned the messages. The silence itself was progress. Back in Seattle, wedding planning began in earnest. Isaac wanted something small by the water. Talon wanted their families to feel included. They compromised on a spring ceremony at a waterfront venue just outside the city. Marcus offered to be best man. "Only if I get to give a speech that embarrasses you both," he joked. One Saturday they drove to a flower farm to choose arrangements. Isaac knelt among the tulips, camera clicking. Talon watched him and felt a surge of love so strong it almost hurt. Later, over lunch at a roadside diner, Isaac said quietly, "I've been thinking about kids someday. Adoption, maybe." Talon set his coffee down. "I want that too. A family that knows exactly who we are from day one." They drove home holding hands the whole way. The hostile takeover threat resurfaced in March. The conservative group filed paperwork claiming moral clauses in old contracts. Legal battles loomed. Talon spent long days with lawyers while Isaac photographed a series on LGBTQ elders for a national magazine. One night Isaac came home late to find Talon asleep at the kitchen table. Contracts spread everywhere. He gently woke him. "You're carrying too much alone." Talon rubbed his eyes. "I built this. I have to protect it." Isaac pulled him to bed. "We protect it together." The misunderstanding started small. Isaac suggested Talon step down temporarily to focus on the wedding and the lawsuit. "The company will survive without you for a few months." Talon's response was sharper than intended. "You don't understand what this company means to me. It's the one thing I built without hiding." Isaac flinched. "And I'm the one thing you almost lost because you were hiding." The words hung heavy. They went to bed without their usual goodnight kiss. The next morning Talon found Isaac on the balcony with coffee. "I'm sorry. You're right. I've been pushing you away again." Isaac turned. "I just don't want to lose the man I fell in love with to the CEO again." They talked for an hour, voices soft, until the sun rose higher. That afternoon Talon delegated more responsibilities to Marcus. "I need balance," he told his friend. Marcus grinned. "About time." Spring blossoms filled the city. They attended their first Pride parade together as an engaged couple. Talon marched with Isaac's arm around his waist, waving at strangers who cheered their names. For the first time he felt he belonged in the open. That night they lay on the roof watching fireworks. Isaac traced the ring on Talon's finger. "Next year we'll be married." Talon kissed his temple. "Can't wait." The lawsuit dragged into April. Court dates were set. Talon's father flew in for support, sitting quietly in the gallery. When the judge ruled in Apex's favor on a key motion, Robert clapped Talon on the back. "Proud of you, son." The words meant more than any boardroom victory. Wedding invitations went out. Talon's mother called crying happy tears when hers arrived. "We'll be there with bells on." Isaac's parents offered to host the rehearsal dinner in California. Life felt like it was knitting itself back together. Yet one loose thread remained. A former colleague leaked old emails where Talon had once joked about keeping personal life private to avoid client questions. The emails surfaced online, twisted to suggest he had been ashamed. Comment sections filled with accusations of hypocrisy. Isaac found Talon staring at his laptop at 3 a.m. "They're not wrong," Talon whispered. "I was ashamed. For years." Isaac closed the laptop. "You were surviving. There's a difference." They spent the rest of the night talking through every fear Talon had carried. By dawn, Talon felt lighter. He issued a single statement. "I was afraid. Now I'm not." "Love one." The response was overwhelmingly positive. Strangers shared their own coming-out stories. The narrative shifted from scandal to inspiration. May brought final wedding preparations. They chose vows together one rainy Sunday, curled on the couch with notebooks. Isaac wrote about patience. Talon wrote about courage. When they read them aloud, the room filled with quiet tears. The night before the rehearsal dinner, Talon's phone rang. His father. "Just wanted to say I love you. Both of you." Talon hung up smiling. Isaac watched him. "See? The world keeps surprising us." The rehearsal dinner in California was warm and loud, with both families mingling. Talon's father and Isaac's dad bonded over bad golf jokes. Watching them, Talon felt the last piece of his old life click into place. The morning of the wedding dawned clear and bright. Talon stood on the balcony of the waterfront venue in his navy suit, watching the sound sparkle. Marcus adjusted his tie in the mirror. "Nervous?" Talon laughed. "Terrified. In the best way." Downstairs guests were arriving, colleagues, friends, family. His mother pinned a boutonniere on his father's lapel while Isaac's parents laughed with Marcus's wife. Isaac waited in a separate room, refusing to see Talon before the ceremony. "Tradition," he had insisted with a wink. Talon respected it even as every cell in his body wanted to run to him. The ceremony began at sunset. String lights twinkled in the trees. Talon walked down the aisle first, heart hammering. Then the music swelled and Isaac appeared, handsome in charcoal, eyes locked on Talon's. They met at the altar, hands joining. The officiant spoke of love that chooses truth over fear. When it was time for vows, Talon's voice cracked only once. "Isaac, you saw me when I couldn't see myself. You waited when I needed time. Today I promise to never hide again." Isaac's eyes shone. "Talon, you taught me that courage looks like quiet steps forward. I promise to walk every one of them beside you." They kissed as the sun dipped into the water, applause rising like waves. At the reception, Marcus gave a speech that had everyone laughing and crying. Talon's father stood and raised his glass. "To my son and his husband. Welcome to the family, Isaac." The room erupted. Talon pulled Isaac onto the dance floor for their first dance as husbands. The world outside the lights and music no longer mattered. The honeymoon in Maui was pure peace. Lazy mornings, snorkeling, evenings watching the sky turn pink. One night on the beach, Isaac traced patterns on Talon's chest. "Remember the restaurant?" Talon smiled. Best worst night of my life. They laughed until the waves drowned the sound. Returning home brought new rhythm. They settled into married life with shared coffee rituals and weekend hikes. Apex Tech thrived under the new inclusive policies Talon championed. Stock reached an all-time high. Then came the call that changed everything again. A reporter from a national magazine wanted to feature them as the couple that changed corporate America. Talon hesitated. Isaac squeezed his hand. This time we control the story. The interview went live in August. The response was overwhelming. Thousands of messages from young people saying Talon's courage had given them hope. One letter stood out. A 16-year-old boy in rural Texas wrote that reading about them made him come out to his parents. They didn't kick me out. They asked to meet you someday. Talon read it aloud to Isaac, tears in both their eyes. This is why we did it, Isaac whispered. Fall brought their first married Thanksgiving in Seattle. Both families flew in. The loft overflowed with laughter and food. Talon's father carved the turkey, while Isaac's mom taught everyone her secret stuffing recipe. After dinner, they played board games until midnight. Talon looked around the table and felt complete. Winter arrived with the first snow. One evening they sat by the fireplace, Isaac's head in Talon's lap. I've been thinking about the adoption paperwork, Isaac said. Talon smiled. Let's start the process after the holidays. They kissed slowly, the fire crackling. The new year opened with a surprise. Marcus called at 7 a.m. The conservative group dropped the last appeal. It's over. Talon hung up and tackled Isaac on the bed with the news. They celebrated with pancakes and plans for the future. Life settled into beautiful ordinary days. Work, dinners, quiet nights. Yet Talon still carried one final piece of unfinished business. He flew to Dallas alone in February. His father met him at the church after Sunday service. They sat in the empty pews. I want to speak here, Talon said. Just once. To the people who sent those messages to Mom. His father was quiet for a long minute. I'll stand beside you. The following Sunday Talon stood at the pulpit, Isaac watching from the front row beside his parents. I grew up in this church. I learned about love here. But I also learned fear. Today I'm asking you to choose love again. The real kind that doesn't exclude. He spoke for 20 minutes. When he finished, the congregation was silent. Then one by one people stood and clapped. His childhood pastor shook his hand. Thank you for reminding us what grace looks like. On the flight home, Talon held Isaac's hand. I think I finally laid the last ghost to rest. Isaac kissed his knuckles. You did good, husband. Spring brought the adoption home visit. The social worker smiled at their framed wedding photo. You two have built something beautiful. The paperwork began in earnest. Summer arrived with their first anniversary. They returned to the bluff where the coordinates on Talon's ring pointed. Isaac spread a blanket. Remember when I gave you this? Talon pulled him down beside him. Best promise I ever received. They watched the sunset, fingers intertwined, the future stretching wide and open before them. The adoption process moved slowly but surely through the following year. Home studies, background checks, waiting lists, every step tested their patience but never their commitment. They decorated the spare room in soft blues and yellows, leaving the walls blank for whatever child would fill them. On quiet evenings, they read parenting books aloud to each other, laughing at the absurdity of trying to prepare for something so unknown. Talon's company continued to grow. He implemented mental health days and family leave policies that made national news. Investors who once questioned his lifestyle now praised his leadership. Marcus teased him constantly. Look at you, changing the world one policy at a time. Talon would just smile and think of the 16-year-old boy from Texas who still sent occasional updates. Now thriving in college with a boyfriend of his own. Isaac's photography career blossomed too. His series on LGBTQ elders became a coffee table book that sold out its first printing. At the launch party, Talon stood beside him, proud beyond words, watching strangers line up to tell Isaac how the images had changed them. One crisp October morning the call came. "We have a match," the social worker said. "A 5-year-old boy named Lucas. He loves dinosaurs and needs a forever home." They drove to the agency in silence, hands clasped so tightly the knuckles whitened. When Lucas walked into the room holding a stuffed T-Rex, something inside both of them clicked into place. He looked up at them with wide brown eyes. "Are you my new dads?" Talon knelt. "If you'll have us." Lucas's smile was the brightest thing either of them had ever seen. The first weeks were chaos and joy. Lucas's laughter filled the loft. He called the couch the Dinosaur Mountain and insisted on bedtime stories about 2 brave dads who saved a kingdom. Talon and Isaac took turns reading, voices soft in the nightlight glow. Some nights Lucas had nightmares about his past. They held him until the tears stopped. Each time Talon felt his own childhood fears loosen further. Their second anniversary arrived with a small family celebration. Lucas helped bake a lopsided cake. Talon's parents flew in, his father now completely at ease calling Isaac son. After dinner, Lucas fell asleep on the couch, T-Rex clutched to his chest. Talon and Isaac stepped onto the balcony. The city lights shimmered below. Isaac rested his head on Talon's shoulder. "Remember the restaurant?" Talon chuckled. "I do. Best decision I ever made." They stood in comfortable silence, the same silence that had once terrified Talon. Now it felt like peace. He thought of every misunderstanding, every sacrifice, every secret that had led them here. The path had been painful, but it had shaped them into men who could love openly and raise a child to do the same. Lucas stirred inside and called out sleepily. They went in together, tucking him back under the covers. As they watched their son drift off again, Talon realized the journey wasn't over. It had simply become something richer. Years later, when Lucas was 10 and asking questions about how 2 dads found each other, Talon would tell him the restaurant story. He would leave out the anger and focus on the courage. And Lucas would grin and say, "I'm glad you were brave, Dad." Talon would look at Isaac across the dinner table and know that every risk had been worth it. Was hiding your true self ever the right choice when love was waiting on the other side?